Okay, so this project involves programming a game of chance involving coins and dice. Now, the rules of the game are rather complicated, but they're explaining the assignment and they're also explaining code block in print statements that you'll see later in this code, so I'll skip that explanation. But the first thing you want to do is import the random module, because you need to do that for all games of chance in Python. Now, second thing you want to do is define this function, coin. Now, y equals random.randomRange2. That means it'll either return 0 or 1. And I'm going to show you. Okay, it came up heads that time, because 1 represents heads and 0 represents tails. And you'll see why that's convenient in a minute. So the next thing you do is dice function. And that's similar to coin function, except it's a dice, not a coin. So it returns integers 1 through 6. And then tray dice rolls 3 of those dice and adds them up. I'll show you. It returns just 1. Okay, it's 9. That's a number you could get if you rolled 3 dice. Like if you rolled 3 threes, for example. Alright. Now this next one is called flip 5. And it does a 5 flip. That's when you flip a coin 5 times and count how many times come up heads. Now it does this with a sum accumulator. And it basically flips the coin 5 times and adds up the results. Since 1 is heads and 0 is tails, that'll automatically be the number of heads. I'll demonstrate. Okay, so that means that you flip the coin 5 times and only 1 time it came up heads. The other 4 times came out tails. Now this next one is called outlist. And that's because it's a list of the outcomes of 4 of the 5 flips. That means you're flipping the coin a total of 20 times. And it just returns them to you as a list. And in fact, I'm gonna show you. Okay, see? A list. So the first 5 flip, it came up heads 4 times. Second 5 flip, it came up 3 times. Third 4 flip was only 1 time. And fourth flip, 5 flip was 5 times. So that's what outlist does. Now, outlist isn't really a standalone function. It's a helper function, because the bet is supposed to be part of this function called game. And see this line? That's the bet, and then L equals outlist bet. But that's getting a little bit ahead of ourselves. So how outlist works is it's a list accumulator. Start with the empty list, and this is a sum accumulator that keeps track of how many times you have how many 5 flips you've done. And the thing is, though, it stops accumulating if one of the 5 flips comes up with a number of heads that you bet on. Like if you bet 3 heads and it went 2, then 1, then 3, it would stop there. So that's how it works. So this is sum accumulator and append list, and then it returns the list. It's a good helper function. And this next one is shot. Now L, again, this is a helper function for this one called game, which I will explain to you in a minute. But what shot does is basically if one of the 5 flips came out how you expected, it'll roll 3 dice for you and it'll add that and return the number of points. That's the points you get that turn. So if bet in L, remember L is outlist, then it gives you that many points, and if not, it doesn't give you any points. But I wrote that way so that it gets used every turn, whether or not you guess correctly. It was just easier to program that way. Okay. Now these next functions are rather longer and more complex than the other functions, and that's because they're pretty much the meat of the game. Now this one is called game. It has to be defined for this one because it's a helper function. This is basically the nuts and bolts of the game, and this is the entire game, including the preliminary explanation. So I'm going to explain this one first because the explanation will flow better that way. So first it tells you all the rules, okay, and then it asks you how many points you want to play to. Now I know you had a specific number of points in mind, but I decided to make it flexible that way for reasons I explain in the written part that you'll see. So anyway, you input how many points you want to play to, and then it asks you for a name, the name of the first player, then asks for the name of the second player. And here's where it starts to get kind of intricate. So once you have the names, you input them into a list. Now notice that player 2 is before player 1. And the exact why I did this, I'm not going to explain because of time considerations, but I explain it in the written part of the assignment. But the important part is the stuff for player 1 is in the first part of this list, because it is a list, and then you've got two score accumulators, score 1 and score 2, and those score accumulators are also put in the list. Now the name of player 2 and the score of player 2 are in the same place in their respective lists. This is so that I can index them at the same time. You will see how this works in the next function. But that's basically what it is. But then this last line performs this entire function, which is a helper to this. So it needs the three parameters: name, which is this list, this one right here, is this thing, and then score, which is this thing, and then apex, which is this thing, the amount of points you want to play to. So I'm now going to explain how game works, because it's pretty much the most complicated part of all. So the first thing we do in game is initialize a sum accumulator. Now this sum accumulator is called count because it counts the number of turns, and if the number of turns is even, then player 2 is going to go, and if the number of turns is odd, then player 1 is going to go. So at every turn, first add 1 to the count, then you go rem, which you notice this is remainder division. That's to determine whether count is even or odd at that point in the game. And then it goes for the list, as in this number is used to index the name list that from here, and so it prints your name and then asks you to make a bet, and then L equals Atlas bet, P equals shot bet. You know what Atlas and shot are. And so it determines the number of points you made on that turn. And then it adds your score. And which score to add to? It does like this, because remember, score is this list. So that's why I need that rem index. And so once all that nuts and bolt type of stuff is done, it tells you scored whoop points this time, giving you a total of points so far in the game, and it also shows the result of the 5 flips. And remember, this is all in a while loop. So it only goes on while both scores are below the apex, which is the number of points you're playing to, the goal of the game, basically. While both of them are less than or equal to apex. So it doesn't exit that while loop until one of them gets to the apex. So this Boolean conditional is pretty much to decide who won, and whoever won, congratulations, and then it tells you how many points you scored, your final score. So that's how this whole thing works. And I'm gonna turn you in a text file of this game in its entirety. But for now, I've explained my code, and there are more details, a much more detailed explanation in the document. And other than that, good night and thank you.